It's a sweet red. I guess if I keep promoting shit like this, one day one of these companies will actually offer me some sort of sponsorship, right? What's up, Aaron? You gotta try Jam Jar. Usually reds you drink room temperature, and this actually is a good one. It's room temperature, but this one, I like it cold too. So, grape flavored water. Y'all something else. Y'all a trip. So I was gonna start by talking about that because it really was like on my mind. I was about to say on my wine. Hey, Talitha. Let me move this back some. So it was really on my mind because I had posted. I'll tell you what my original post said. The original post from yesterday, and then I'm going to talk about what I wanted to talk about tonight. So the original post from yesterday said, I'm trying to get to it. Okay, so I said, just learned that the Hispanic community is protesting tomorrow. No school, no work. They've decided to come together to demonstrate the possible repeal of DACA. And some of you couldn't or wouldn't give up football to take a stand for what is happening to us, black people in this country. So someone commented under my post, and I usually don't reply to stuff like that because it can sometimes go back and forth, and when I post something like that, it really is because it's something that I'm thinking about, and it's something that I'm trying to provoke you guys to think about if you haven't already. And of course we can have a dialogue about it, but I'm not one of those people that's going to have like this social media fight, like I'm going to be fighting back. I'm not doing all of that. So I don't think that it was a fight. I think that he was really trying to offer some perspective. So I'll read you what he said, and then I'll read you what I wrote today. So this is what he said. He said, this status is disconcerting to me for the following reasons. One, I grow weary of the black community being lambasted for what we will and won't do collectively. Using other ethnic groups as the barometer. Nothing is that simple. Those comparisons are tangential at best and factually incorrect. So then he says, number two, what exactly is Hispanic? Do I really need to explain that? Who fits that ethnic category? Further, who's protesting? Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, Spanish? So then three, he says, this presumptively assumes that all or even a majority of this ethnic group is participating. I'm 100% certain this presumption is in error, but it's still being proffered as a way to scold black people. Four, this seems to promote the narrative that inattention to solidarity is the greatest impediment to black progress. It's not. White supremacy is. In some ways, this appears to conflate solidarity with monolithic ideology and or action. That's dangerous and an exhibition of bias. I love us. Thus, I'm very critical of us because I know we can be better. That said, I am loath to try condensing the deep and profoundly damaged experiences of American black people to, well, if y'all would just, and so that's where he ended. So I wasn't going to respond, like I said, and I did speak about it briefly yesterday on my live video. But the day I had yesterday was just a horrible day, and the traffic, my mother, my phone went out, and just everything that could go wrong went wrong. And so I was just kind of exhausted, mentally exhausted to even reply to it. So today, it just kind of arrested me. Like I was just minding my business, excuse me, because when I woke up, I was thinking about it, like his response. And for me, my job as a writer is to be as clear as possible and to be understood. But no matter how clear I am, there will always be a crop of people who understand it the way that they understand it, even if it's not my intention. And so before I knew it, I was just writing. And it was kind of lengthy, so I'm sure some of you did not read it. But some of you did, and some of you commented. But I'm going to read it to you. You guys ready? Yeah, I thought his response was good too, but, and so here's my but. Certainly all Hispanics aren't protesting DACA. Surely some will acquiesce and be deported. But just as all white people, white women in particular, didn't vote for Trump, although black folk are always screaming and posting on social media that white women voted Trump in without excluding the minority of white women that didn't. I believe you knew the point I was making. Let's not get hung up on semantics. Critical thinkers and thought leaders know and knew there were exceptions to my post. I'm all for rewriting the narrative as it relates to black women that are labeled angry, as well as the story that so many eligible black women are single. Black men that are labeled non-committal and deadbeat. Although there are many men who demonstrate leadership and fatherhood in our community, as well as this narrative that black gay men are destined for HIV because we're over-sexual. But and however, as an artist and writer who loves and adores all there is about the black experience, who writes for us and about us, I also have a responsibility to speak on the realities too. I've posted several things about the great things we do as a community, black and gay, without comparisons to others. I lost my space, hold on. In fact, I go out of my way to support and shout out black businesses on my social media that get it right, when many black people believe or anticipate the worst from black business owners. Yet, I will also hold us accountable too, because I love us enough to criticize us, with hope that we will grow in the areas we need that we need improvement. For whatever reason, we fear backlash or being called a hater if we offer constructive criticism of black films, black TV shows, black businesses. I no longer have that fear. Whenever we hold each other to a standard publicly, we shift our focus from the issue at hand to the why we're this way, instead of focusing on how to improve. And part of improving or healing certain traumas is to call it out. Case in point, I know 5 women off the top of my head that are degreed, homeowners, make upwards of 6 figures, they do not have children, yet they are single. Do I recognize that there are systems in place that have made it difficult for some black men to match these women mentally, intellectually, and financially? Certainly I do. I also acknowledge that some of these women aren't easy to love because they are ice boxes and just angry because they are the breadwinner and have no problem reminding these men they are. Do I also recognize that many of the issues that black men, black people in general, face are systemic of slavery? Most certainly. But what do I say to these women that I know personally who yearn for partnership with a black man, but can't seem to find him because this society has beaten down so many? What do I say to those women that we scold for finding love outside of the black community because they're tired of waiting for a black man that's ready to show up? Points to Serena Williams, because you guys know that social media blasted her because she got married to this white guy. What do I say to the countless black gay men that email me asking if I believe a relationship can work between two black gay men because they see no examples around them? What do I say to the black gay men who ask if they can find a partner that isn't HIV positive because the majority of the men they encounter are HIV positive? And the ones who want relationships free of cheating and the typical bullshit that we're all oh so familiar with. Yes, I believe we must rewrite the narrative because there are black women in loving relationships, black gay men in healthy and prosperous relationships. But what do I say to those that aren't living that reality right now, including myself? Because the truth is, there is a lot of shit to shift through just to find companionship. And I know the root cause for much of our trauma derives from slavery and homophobia in the world, respectively. But how does knowing that pacify me or them? Because everything just work. Because frankly, this life isn't a Tyler Perry play, movie, or TV show where everything just works out. Hashtag no shade, but plenty of shade. So while I am not using other communities as a barometer, nor am I lambasting black people and will never lambast black gay men, I'm simply more focused on the resolve. How do we fix it? How do we elevate the culture without fear of being attacked for pointing out our stuff? Because frankly, it is not enough for me anymore to simply say or know that the issues we face are a result of something else, namely our past. And that's it. And so for me, again, I was just provoked to write this because I just feel like whenever someone from our community, whether famous or not, steps up and points out the shit that black people need to repair, there's always this crowd of people that are saying, well, you know, that all dates back to slavery. And I'm not discounting that. I understand that. And that's a real thing. But does that mean I can't point it out? Or does that mean Bill Cosby can't point it out and say that black parents need to start parenting? Because what he said was valid. Now, I will say that the way in which he said it was not cool. It was insensitive. It was harsh. And it was demeaning, the way that Bill Cosby said it. But what he said was valid. And I can't tell you how many panels I've sat on, where conversations about black gay men have come up. And we've talked about the challenges of being in a relationship or finding suitable partnerships. And there are scores of men with these same stories, but there's always someone that says, well, that's not the narrative, and that's not. Well, the fuck it is. Because there's 13 bitches in this room, they're single with the same kind of stories. So I think sometimes in an effort for us to polish off our image, we don't want to admit or face the truth. But the only way to heal it and to get through it is to really talk about it. And the same kind of thing happened with the Million Man March many years ago. How many people got discouraged and did not participate in the very first Million Man March because a Muslim came up with the idea, came up with the concept, because he brought it to the center. So we sometimes get so distracted with ancillary details. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that there isn't credibility or credence to our past traumas that affect us today, because I believe that is a very real thing. But I just get so frustrated when a person or I call out certain things that I would like to see us be better at because I love us that much. When someone says, yeah, well, you're comparing us to... I'm not comparing to anybody. And that's all I got to say about that. Now, here's what I wanted to talk about tonight. I got an email today from one of you saying how she really enjoyed the conversation the other night where I kind of hinted at a depression that I experienced. And she said, I really would love for you to go more in detail about the depression that you experience, because a lot of people are suffering and are going through a depression. Sometimes it's a functional depression. You don't even know you're depressed. And so when she said it and I was reading her email, I literally got chills. And I was like, okay, this is what, hey, Robert. So I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to talk about tonight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you my story. I do go into great detail in the first book. The details for how to get the books are up there in the caption. I'll always put that up there. But my depression, the first time that I was aware that I was going through a depression was back in 2002. So this was 15 years ago. And I had just produced my stage play for the second time. So the very first time, Tyler Perry had come to the show. The show had sold out. I was 26 years old. And so that was like this incredible thing. And I hadn't really experienced any losses at this time. I had lost some jobs before, but I had never experienced the loss of an apartment in terms of like eviction or moving out because I was going to be evicted. I had never experienced a repossession, a car repossession. I hadn't experienced like overdrawn bank accounts. I hadn't experienced much loss at this point. So I had produced this stage play and the show had sold out. And I'm going to be as transparent as I can be. So I really want you to see my heart. I want you to see what's pure in what I'm saying. And don't at all think that I'm trying to speak big or whatever. But I was 26. I had gone to college. I had graduated in 4 years. I was the first in my immediate family to graduate college. My sister and brother both have GEDs from high school, or the equivalent of a high school diploma. And I was doing it. You know what I'm saying? I had moved to Atlanta. I had my own place. I was working. I was writing for this theater company. And then fast forward a few years later, I'm working for IBM, lost my job. That's in the book. I'm not going to go into those details. I didn't lose the job. I got fired. And I started writing this play. And I started writing this play, A Day in the Life, because the very first guy that I fell in love with, not the first guy that I dated, but the first guy that I fell in love with, learned that he was HIV positive. And that's how the first book opens. And so that had shifted my life. Like my life was going this way, and then it shifted in another direction because that experience completely changed the trajectory of my life. Because when I had moved here, I was only interested in writing music. That's all I thought I wanted to do. But as I was coming to terms with being gay and assimilating into the gay community, making more gay friends, and going to gay events and functions and parties and just that kind of thing, just finding my niche in this community, there were a lot of things that I still didn't understand. And even though I was matriculating in the gay community, I still hadn't made peace with my sexuality. And I write about this in great detail, not just for myself, but for us as gay men, and in particular, black gay men. So even though I was functioning in the gay community, I had gay friends, I was going to gay parties, I was going to gay prides, and even sometimes going to DC for their pride, going to New York for pride, I hadn't made peace with myself. I hadn't given myself permission to be me. And so I produced this stage play. And the play was really all of the things that I didn't understand about the gay community. And it was told from the perspective of 6 gay characters. Even today, I believe those 6 characters represent the persona that you find in the gay community. So it's the most feminine gay character, or the queen, the transgender that believes she should have been born a woman, the minister of music of the church who's struggling to reconcile his sexuality with his spiritual beliefs, the closeted professional. He's in a relationship, they live together, but none of his colleagues or peers or family know that he's gay. I wrote a character after myself, comes from a supportive family. He's just an even-keeled gay man right down the middle that is clear about who he is. He comes from a supportive family, but he just cannot really find his way in this new world. And then the final character is the DL character, or the straight identified character, who doesn't believe he is gay. He has relationships with women. He just wants to have sex with men. And so I had produced this play, and this shit sold out. Like, it was straight, it was just God. Like, this show sold the fuck out. So here I am, 26, still going at my prime, going to the gay clubs. And this is when, if you know Atlanta, Trax was big downtown across from where the aquarium is now. Colors was the spot. Like, I mean, just all of these clubs. And there would be a line to get in the club. The kid didn't have to get in the line. Oh, that's the guy that did the play. Come on, come on up here. You know what I mean? That shit. And you know, when you're 26, that shit goes where? To your ego. And I would have people sending drinks and shit, and just like, I wasn't paying to go into the clubs. Like, it was just like my little high, my little moment. But God has a way of sitting you down. He has a way of pruning you. You know how a tree that gets too majestic, the leaves and shit get real big, and you got to cut it back because the shit is growing all up in the wires by your house and covering the glass. Sometimes you got to get pruned. He got to pull you back because you get too big. And so I know that now at 41, looking back, that he had to prune me. That was why the car had to be repossessed, the first one, because I had more than one repossessed. That was why I had to go and sign up for food stamps at some point. I had people that I could eat with. I could have gone back home. But what I'm telling you is, he had to handle me. God knows what you need. He knows what you need. He knows what each of us needs. And for me, he knew he had to cripple me financially. And he had to hit me in my finances to get my attention, to grab my attention. For some of you, it's your relationship. Y'all ain't listening. But I'm going to give it to you. For some of you, it's your relationship because you idolize your relationship. And I'm not one of those people that sit in here telling you that God is a jealous God. I don't believe all of that. I'm not saying all of that. What I am saying is, sometimes when we idolize certain things and we worship certain things, whether it's your marriage, he will take that marriage from you. You just won't even understand why your marriage is crumbling. Sometimes it's your health, because you got that vain spirit. Whatever it is, apply it to your life. And so he knew he had to humble me, because see, I believe that God gave me a gift, and that gift is to write. But at that time, at 26, I didn't know that writing was a gift. I thought a gift was being able to sing or being able to dance, something that was tangible, something that you could see and witness. And so I didn't really honor or respect the gift. And that was to be able to write and to be able to use words to speak to the hearts and minds of people. And so at 26, this show sold out. And instead of me paying closer attention to the impact that it had, that the words and the characters had on people, my focus became, oh, a nigga about to be rich. Oh, I'm about to do this. This play is about to set me up. But that's not what your gift is for. That's not what your gift is for. And I realized that's why, because let me segue for a second, because I believe that everything that happens to us happens for a reason right here in the physical realm, right here on earth. And that reason parallels what's going on in the spiritual realm, up there in the heavens with God. I'm going to give you an example. So at 26, Tyler Perry came to the show, said the show was brilliant. He gave me $1,000. I thought, like, what is $1,000? Like, this shit is some bullshit. Ungrateful. Tyler, in the physical realm, right here on earth, didn't and wouldn't touch my play or put me in touch with a promoter, because in this physical realm, the content, The play was about 6 gay characters. I believe some other stuff about Tyler, but I write that in the book, so go get the book. But in the physical realm, Tyler wouldn't touch the play because of the content. He said the show was too controversial. This was 2002. You didn't have Empire with gay characters. You didn't have Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. You didn't have Will and Grace. What I'm telling you is this shit was at the beginning of the curve. And because I was not humble at 26, because I believe I could have been there by now. But see, I wasn't humble at 26. See, I thought it was all about me. I had written this play, and I was like, oh, nigga, I'm getting in the front of the clubs, and I ain't paying to go in. And, you know, wasn't humble. So in the physical realm, Tyler didn't touch the play because it was from the perspective of 6 gay characters. But I believe in the spiritual realm, things weren't put into motion in the physical realm because on the spiritual level, God knew I wasn't ready. He knew I would become bigger than my purpose. He knew I would become bigger than my purpose. The work would have been about me and not about reaching and touching and healing and growing people. And so he had to sit me down. The car was repossessed. I go into a lot more detail than this. I'm just jumping the story just for the sake of illustrating the point. Car was repossessed. Bank account was overdrawn $660. Relationship was falling apart. Everything that could go wrong in my life went wrong. I could cry right now. I'm telling you because I am so grateful. And I only hope, I'm going to tell you why I wrote these books, because my approach with these books are completely different than my approach with the play. And my dream is to bring that play back. But I don't do these books for the purpose of making money and selling it. And you understand what I'm saying? It's not about me becoming rich, because I believe that will come. I told you the other day, when you follow your passion, you can't fail. If it's your passion, if it's your life's work, if it's what you're meant to do, you will always be provided for. Always. And what I'm telling you is, because I wasn't humble, and because he had to do whatever he needed to do to get my attention. And I think that sometimes sickness is a way to get your attention. Now, I'm not at all saying that God will put a disease on you. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is sometimes certain things will occur in your life because that's what it takes to get your attention, whether it's cancer, a cancer scare, whether it's the death of a parent or a death of a child. He will do whatever is necessary to get your attention. But it all has purpose. And so for years, I struggled in and out of the welfare office, dealing with these mean-ass women that work there because they're always nasty. It was a humbling experience. It was a humbling experience. Knowing I had a degree, going in there with people who hadn't done the work that I had done in my life, right? Yeah, you picking out what I'm putting down, Marika. But in that office and at that level of humility, we were all on the same level. And see, that's what I'm saying. He broke down all of that shit that I was carrying with me. And so I'm slipping into this depression, didn't even know it. Because after that sold out show, I was on top of the world. So 3 months later, I went and threw the show up again. And see, this time, ego was telling me, oh yeah, do the shit again. You ain't even got to promote as much because they know what the fuck you did. They saw it. They heard about it. Just go ahead and put this shit up. You about to make this money. You about to do this next thing. Go ahead and put the shit up. But my spirit told me it wasn't time. But that ego, ooh, that ego is vicious. Either you control it or it will control you. Some of y'all not even speaking to family or good friends, the people that you know hold you down because of your ego. But I knew it wasn't time to do that play again. But I did it. Lost money. We had an investor that put money up for it, lost his money. I wasn't able to pay my cast. These people looking at me like, where our check? there was nothing more disappointing than walking out on that stage after having come from a show 3 months before that sold out. And coming out on that stage that next time, and it was about 10, 12 people in there, and it was 1,000 seats. You hear what I'm saying to you? It was about 12 or 15 people in there in 1,000-seat theater. That was 2002. Slipping deeper into this depression. Not even knowing it. Smiling on the outside. Friends and family weren't aware that it was happening. Carrying that depressed spirit in and out of different relationships that I was in during that time. And see, you date at the level of your self-esteem. And at that time, my self-esteem had plummeted because at the time, my self-esteem was attached to money. My self-esteem was attached to accomplishments. And see, at this point, the play had tanked. And so I wasn't feeling the very best about myself. So I was attracting, you picking up what I'm putting down? I was attracting the bullshit that I write about in that first book. I was attracting these broken men. And so I'm just going in, and I wouldn't sit still. I wouldn't sit still just to hear the voice of God. I just wouldn't, or your spirit. You may not call it God. I don't want you to get caught up in semantics, because I've told you enough times I'm very spiritual. I have little or no concern about church and religion, but I have every bit of concern about God and spirituality and my connection. And I can look back over my life and see the times where I was off center. You know what I mean? Off center, not sitting still and really getting to that quiet place, just moving and doing too much. Not sitting still long enough and speaking to everybody around me about my situation instead of sitting still and allowing the universe to guide me. So it wasn't until many years later, fast forward, I'm working at a phone company, at an internet department. It was Bell South Internet. And I decided that I wasn't gonna do the play again because in my mind, the play had hurt me. But it wasn't the play, it was my approach, and it was me. I had to do some dying in here. And so I had decided, I had resolved that I was not going to do the play again, because after the second time when the show tanked, I did a 1-year anniversary show and that motherfucker tanked. So that's 2 back-to-back shows that tanked. Okay? So I'm telling you about trying to manipulate life and trying to control things. You can't control shit. Sit your ass down. Sometimes you just got to be still. And let whatever happen, happens, right? But that ego, we got to try to hold on to that car, because what people going to think if you ain't got no car no more? What you going to do if people ask you what happened to your car and it done got repossessed? What you going to do if you have to move out of your house because your house get foreclosed on? You going to lose your mind for that because you're worrying about what people are thinking? Sometimes God is trying to get your attention. When shit is not going right, and I know I curse and I talk about God, but he knows my heart. But I believe that when shit is off track in your life, it's because he's trying to get your attention. And sometimes we just ignore it and just keep going. And so I'm working at Bell South Internet, made the decision that I was never going to do the play again. And so at this point, I had started building my greeting card business, because while I was writing the play, even while we were in rehearsal, I started writing these greeting cards. And there were times that I didn't know if I was writing dialogue for the play or if I was writing a love card or a sympathy card or whatever. But once I got a hold of it, I knew which was which. So I'm working at Bell South Internet. And at the time, I was dating a guy, the very first guy that really, really believed in what I was doing. But I was so sick. My spirit was so sick. I couldn't even see him. You ever had that where there's somebody that's so good to you and for you, but because you're so sick, you can't even feel their heart. You can't even allow them to get to your heart. That was what was happening. This man had put money towards the last production of my play that tanked. He gave me money towards that because we were down to the wire and I had to pay the venue for like when you move into a theater space when you're doing a play, you have to pay the final deposit if you haven't already when you move in your shit. You can't be moving in your set and all that shit if you ain't got their money. So I didn't have the rest of the money, and he had put this money up. When I had started my greeting card business, it was he that gave me the money to print the first run of greeting cards that I did. Like, he believed in me. But I couldn't even see it. I just wasn't in that space. And that's why I have said, I think in the second book, we've all been somebody's disappointment. We've all let somebody down that was good for us, right? And so I can sit here and tell you that I'm this great guy and today, but the person that I am today was not the person that I was then. So like whenever people say to me, oh, I'm one of the good guys, or I'm a good woman, that you ain't always been good, because we've all had some shit with us. And so I focused on the greeting cards, started building the greeting cards. But I'm still in this depression, just didn't know it. Because it's manifesting in this relationship with this guy that I'm telling you about. And I'll never forget, there was a turning point. One day he said to me, I will never forget, I remember this shit like it was yesterday. Because I knew exactly what he was talking about. He said, we were driving back home, because by this time I had moved into his place. And he said, you just seem so happy and alive, and you smile so much when we're out and you're around your friends. But when we're home and it's just me and you, it's like you don't really smile, like you're not happy, like you're not happy with me. So he was taking my energy. That's why you gotta be really careful and pay attention to your energy, the energy that you exert. And I said to him, and I felt horrible, and I said, no, it has nothing to do with you. I said, with you, I'm with you every day. I see you every day, so I can't mask this sadness, this depression, the way that I can for them, because I don't see them every day. I can put on a brave face and a smile for a couple of hours because we're going out to eat or for drinks. But I started to realize that I was in this depression. And it was at the beginning stages. And it wasn't until that particular relationship ended, and I ended it. And I ended it because, again, I was sick. I was sick. And the littlest things just sent me off. Like I was always just looking for a reason to run, because I already had too much on my plate. I was depressed. My finances were in a shambles. Everything was horrible. And so I was looking for a reason to say, you know what, I can't do this. Let's just call this off. And so that was what I did. And I ended it, regretted it later. But when that breakup set in, on me, and I realized that there was no going back, and that he was not interested in trying to resolve it, because throughout that relationship, every time we had an argument or a disagreement, again, because I was looking for a reason to run, this is over, I can't do this no more. And then he would beg me back. He'd come. I'll never forget, one day he came to my door. He had a duffel bag, because I just wouldn't answer the phone. I wouldn't reply to my text. And it had nothing to do with him, but he came to my house and was like, I couldn't get in touch with you. Like, I just came, here. But every time we had a disagreement, every time we had an argument, he was always the one throwing out the fishing pole, trying to reel me back in, trying to do the work. He was doing all of the heavy emotional lifting. And when that relationship was done, he had had enough. And he said, I don't think you realize that every time you broke up with me, every time you walked out of that door, you took a piece with me. He said, you took a piece of me with you. I'm sorry. You knew what I meant, though. And I didn't understand that then. That breakup sent me to the bottom of this depression. And when I tell you, I fought my way out of that depression. My days were just really dark. I talk in detail about how the depression played out in my life, because I know some people, they eat, some people, they go shopping, some people, whatever it is, I write about how mine played out. But when I tell you, it was a secret that nobody knew. And I was just in such a low space. I was so dark. I was so heavy all of the time. And I couldn't shake it. I didn't know what it was. And I couldn't explain it. And it wasn't until recently. And I haven't suffered from that, because I really think that mine, as I mentioned to you guys before, I really believe that my depression was attached to the things that were happening in my life. That's why happiness shouldn't be the goal. It should be joy. Joy should be the goal, not happiness. Because happiness is predicated on the things that are happening in your life. You got a great job, you got a great relationship, but what are you when all of that stuff is gone? And so I didn't understand what depression really was until recently. I was watching The View one day, and I don't watch The View on a regular basis, but again, God gives you what you need when you need it. And Whoopi Goldberg said she had read this book. If I knew what it was, I would tell you, but I can't remember. I can't remember the man's name. But she said, I think most people think that depression means, or is exclusive to, sitting at home and you like, oh, I can't pick myself up. Like, that's not the only way, that's not the only way it manifests. I was out and about. Mine was functional. I was depressed when I was writing for Brandy. I flew to LA depressed. But what she said, what Whoopi Goldberg said was, depression, according to this book, is a mental exhaustion. It's a mental exhaustion. And that's so defined it for me. It was like, it's like your brain is just tired of just trying to figure out things, to control things, to manipulate things, to move things around, and to try to negotiate things to get out of certain situations. And that was it for me. That was really it for me. And so I was working for Bell South Internet. And I started the greeting card business after me and my ex had broken up. He had gotten me started, but then I just took it and started running with it. And I started going to different black-owned businesses right here in Atlanta. And the very first business that brought my greeting cards in was Seya Salon and Spa. It's a black-owned salon and spa, high-end salon. I knew a girl that worked there. She connected me with the owners, and that was how it happened. I started going into those stores, but I was still working at Bell South Internet. And one weekend I had a greeting card party, right? A greeting card party is just like an Avon party or a Tupperware party or jewelry party. I had a variety of different greeting cards out. I had food and stuff for people to eat. I had little drinks and that kind of thing. And that was my way of introducing them to the cards. And people bought cards and that kind of thing. My mother had flew in town. She was still living in Baltimore at the time. She flew in town to help me. But by the time that weekend was done and I had dropped my mom back off at the airport and everything was said and done, I was exhausted that Monday when it was time for me to go back to Bell South Internet. And so I'm at work and I'm on the phone talking to customers about their internet, why their shit ain't working and what's going on. They cussing and carrying on. And I'm sitting there thinking, God, I'm just wasting my life in this place. Looking at the proverbial clock. Looking at my life's clock, feeling like I'm running out of time. When is it really going to happen for me? Watching other people bypass me who seem to be more blessed. Friends buying homes, I'm struggling to pay rent. Friends buying new cars, I'm losing cars in repossession. And I'm just wondering, like, why me? Like, what, have you forgotten that I'm here? Like, why would you give me, these were my questions to God. Why would you give me these gifts, this talent, if you're not going to allow me to use it? Those were my questions. And I used to ask him, because at this point, I had written for Brandy. I had worked with Tweet. I had worked with all of these producers whose work you would know if I told you. I had sold out this play, had met with Tyler Perry. By then, I had met his promoter. It wasn't through him, but I met his promoter. He loved the idea of the play. But I just couldn't figure out how to make it work. But again, it goes back to the original point. It's not your job to try to figure that out. You don't have to connect the dots. And so I just felt frustrated. But I'm going to tell you what God said back when I said, why would you give me this talent? Why would you trust me with these gifts and this insight if you're not going to allow me to reach the people? And when I tell you that shit came to me so clear one day, because I used to wake up like in the middle of the night around this time. It would be like, it was always around the same time, like 3, 4 in the morning. And I don't know about you, but when I wake up like that, my first instinct is to pray and say, what is it that you want me to know? Because you've jarred me from my sleep, because you're trying to tell me something. Because throughout the day, I'm ripping and racing. Now we're looking at social media. I'm trying to get to the gym. So my question is, what is it that you want me to know? And he said to me, because I said to him, I had been asking him, why would you give me this talent? Why would you give me these gifts if I can't reach the people? And he said, because I knew you would stay the course until it happened. I knew I could trust you to hold on to it until it happened. And so I heard that, but it wasn't what I wanted to hear. Okay? So I'm at Bell South Internet, working these phones, hating every minute of it, kicking, screaming, and dragging my feet to work every single day, hating every moment of it. And after that weekend I had done the greeting card party, I was so exhausted that I went to work, and I ended up calling in and saying that I didn't go to work. After the greeting card party, I called in, and I said I had a death in the family. Because, and I ain't superstitious. I know somebody like, oh my God, why would you say that? I ain't superstitious. So I said I had a death in the family because I needed more than one day off. I needed 3. I needed to think, I needed to recollect myself, and I needed to restore because I was exhausted, physically exhausted. But at this point, the greeting cards were starting to move because by then I was in a floral shop and seance salon. So I was like, okay, if I can keep up this momentum, I won't have to go back to work. So I ended up working, calling in, told them I had a death in the family. I went out for 3 days. On that 4th day, I went back to work. And I was down because I had to go back to work. So I'm at work just kind of just like this, whatever. So my supervisor really thought that I had a death in the family. And she came to my desk and said, listen, I know how it is to lose someone. So if you need to take more time off, take more time off. Baby, when I tell you I took that time off. And unbeknownst to me, when I was off work for 5 or 7 days straight, Bell South automatically turned it into a short-term disability case. Now watch this. Not only did it turn into a short-term disability case, but they would pay me 60% of my salary. So I had that 60% to supplement what I was making for the greeting cards. So I went out for those 6 months that they allowed me, And then that 6 month ended, and I was going to counseling. I'm bringing this back to this depression. The reason I knew that for sure that I was depressed was because a part of the requirement for me to get my check, my 60% from Bell South, and to go out on disability, they required me to go to counseling. And so I had a standing appointment with this woman at 1 o'clock every Tuesday. And I would just go in there bullshitting, because I didn't really think I was depressed at this point. I'd go in there, and this was before I was wearing a beard, so I had a goatee, and so I would let my hair kind of grow in, and it was looking all crazy. And I'd go in there with stripes this way and something going in. Like, I just looked really disheveled, really like homeless. And on a good day, if I was really in character, I wouldn't even brush my hair. I would just get up and just go. And I would just play the role like I was depressed. And I'm just talking to this woman. Wasn't even really interested if she was paying attention or not. And one day I heard myself say, I said it out loud. I said to her, I've been meeting guys on the internet that I don't know and having sex. And she said, well, why do you think you're doing that? And that was the first time that I really processed it and thought about it. And it wasn't an immediate shift, but it put things in motion. And so I really started to extract like all of the things that has shaped and changed my life. I realized there was some unresolved stuff from my parents' divorce. There was some unresolved things between my dad and me when he remarried. All of this stuff I contained in those 2 books. All of the epiphanies and revelations that I've had. I realized that I hadn't really mended my heart from that relationship that I told you guys about with the guy that I had lived with. There were just so many things that I hadn't mended. And my heart was bleeding. It was bleeding. And I really didn't get a hold of it. Now, this is about 2005 at this point. And I really didn't get a hold on it. This depression, this sadness, this intermittent kind of emptiness that I was feeling. I felt like I was running on empty. And it wasn't until I moved to California. And I was on that flight, and I remember the plane is barreling down the runway. And I remember saying a prayer. I was saying a prayer like, dear Lord, don't let this plane go down first. And then the other thing was, Lord, I want to leave everything behind. I want to leave it all in Atlanta. I want to leave all of the subterfuge, all of the things that caused me pain, all of the things that I feared, all of the things that I worried about. I want to leave the broken finances. All of that I wanted to leave in Atlanta. And when I got to California, I wanted to just start anew. And that was how I did it. And again, it wasn't immediate. It was work. And part of the work was making the decision to be single for 2 years. Because up to that point, I had never had longer than a year between any of my relationships. Right as soon as that year was coming around, here's somebody come trying to get in a relationship. Or here I go trying to get in a relationship. And so part of my cleansing was to be single for 2 years. I promised myself that you need 2 years because I needed to get clear about some stuff. You can't really organize your life with all of this stuff crowding around you. It's okay to be alone for some time. Appreciate it. Welcome it so that you can sit in the pain of whatever you're going through, whatever it is that you're carrying. Now, I do believe that there are chemical depressions. You have to determine what kind you have. My suggestion would be to speak to somebody. Most health insurances will allow you to go and speak to someone, and you just pay a little copay. I was sharing with a friend of mine a couple weeks ago in Baltimore, If that is not the route that you want or that you can go, then you need a tribe. And when I say a tribe, you need about 2 or 3 people in your life that you can count on that will give you the best advice. But you got to be ready to receive it. Because oftentimes people talk about, oh, I want real friends and, I need people that's going to hold me down. But as soon as a bitch holds you accountable, you not speaking. That ego. That's what I have for you guys tonight. So I want you to marinate on that. Thank you for listening. I hope that it blessed somebody. Hopefully you will share this video with somebody who needs to hear it. Have an amazing weekend. Be safe. Kent, your books will arrive tomorrow. Be safe. And I'll see you guys on Monday. Monday at 9 p.m. All right? My email and everything is up here if you need to speak or say something, or you can. I reply to all of the emails. Give me some time, but I'm usually able to reply right away. All right? So have a good night. Be safe. Keep loving yourself.